What's going on, everybody, and welcome into episode 3 of Rival Banter, a Marvel Rivals podcast. I'm your host, Hoagie, alongside Bookish Pappy, the esteemed Seth. How are you doing, my friend? How has your week been?
I'm blurry, but I'm doing all right, just fine. Great week. Made Diamond. We'll talk about that later. About to lose Diamond. We'll talk about that later too. But we're feeling good today.
You don't look blurry. The camera's looking good on
You
my
don't think
end.
so?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's just mine.
Yeah, no, must have just
It's a
downscaled it.
self-image thing.
Yeah, no, man, you're looking good to me. Um, can you see me, by the way, as a director? We're trying a
Yeah,
new setup here. Okay. All right. Cool.
yeah,
Cool.
I can see
Cool.
you just fine.
Well, no, yeah, no. We'll definitely talk about our rank journey here in just a moment. But for the uninitiated, this is Rival Banter. This is a podcast all about Marvel Rivals. We do this every Tuesday live over here on twitch.tv/itishoagie. Then it goes out on podcast services everywhere on Wednesdays. Also over on YouTube, you can catch the VOD of this. And honestly, dude, we got a little bit of an audience. We got some people watching the show, and it's really cool to see. Actually, I wanted to pull up a comment that we got on one of our TikToks from the other day because I thought it was a good point. So I clip out some of the things that we're talking about each week, and so I pulled out a clip of us talking last week about how, if Marvel wants to really avoid the 222 roll queue stuff that was that had to get introduced into Overwatch, then we really need to blur the lines between DPS and Vanguard and DPS and strategist. And somebody made this comment. This is from and I might butcher this, but from Kiyumi Yokai. He wrote over on TikTok. He said the actual issue is the extreme difference in roster size. DPS has triple the amount of options of either Vanguard or support, and it feels so limiting as a support main. What do you make of that argument, Seth?
I mean, definitely, it is a huge difference, and I mean, you can just see it looking at the screen. The first time that you log in. So, it's great for duelists. But I mean, I think it just kind of validates what we said before: is that we do need those blurred lines. We need some characters that can kind of do both. And so, if you can add some support that has a little bit more potential for damage, then yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there can be more than one problem, and I think there can be more than
For
one
sure.
more than one solution as well. But I also think when a game comes out, you know that most people are going to gravitate towards DPS, and if your whole goal is like you want to hook people early on and make sure that there is enough kind of meat on the bone for them to continue to come back, enough options at the buffet, if you will, for them to have enough to grub on, then I understand maybe inflating that DPS roster a little bit more to begin with, but yeah, I do hope we start to see the edges of that roster being built out a little bit more as characters start to release with future seasons. But appreciate that comment. Definitely keep those things coming. I want to try to highlight more of the community interaction as we go through. Especially when people leave thoughtful feedback on some of the stuff that we post, because this is a discussion show. We get together because we love this game, we love talking about this game, and we want you guys to be a part of that. So if you're watching live over on Twitch or over on TikTok, feel free to leave your comments, and we will feel free to, and we will engage with you live here as well. But all right, Seth, well, let's jump into it. Let's talk about our week in Rivals. We left some goals for ourselves last week, and Seth, I know one of your goals was to, I don't think you had a goal to make it to Diamond last week. I think your goal was to make it to Plat 1, right? And like be comfortably in Plat 1?
Something like that, yeah. And we did. I mean, we made it. We made it there. We made it to Diamond. I even made it up as high as Diamond 2 this week. I played with some of the kids at school and got up there. I made it yesterday to 2, and I immediately lost it later that night. So you and I played 2 rounds and lost both of them. We got on with a friend and played 2 more rounds, and we lost those 2. So I played 2 more games today. lost those as well. So now I am on the cusp of returning to Plat One. But I'm not. I'm choosing not to let it get me too down. As long as I can just have some fun matches and enjoy the game. That's all I'm really here for. That's what I'm telling myself, at least.
I'll tell you what, man. I've done the like the bungee cord between Plat 1 and Diamond 3 like 4 times now, and I got really discouraged the first time, and then after the next couple, I was like, you know what, like maybe I kind of belong here. Like, okay, I can do this. Like, I've done it before. So when I first got that diamond, though, I was like, I don't want to play anymore because I don't want to lose this. But
yeah, that's kind of how I felt. But take a break.
But yeah, no, I'm back down to Diamond 3 right now too, but I'm right at the cusp of Diamond 2. I got on and I played a game during my lunch break and had to tank, which is not something I'm normally super comfortable doing in ranked, but played Magneto. I think I played pretty decent and got a win. So I'm like right on the edge of Diamond 2. Picked up a little bit of Bucky in quick play this week and was having a lot of fun with him. I don't DPS in rank, so I log on to quick play and do it when I want to get a feel for some characters. But we'll talk about the EMEA Invitational here in a little bit. And I watched a lot of pro play, and there's a lot of Bucky right now in the pro meta, and so I was like, man, this character like looks fun when you're kind of playing him. Because, you see Bucky and you kind of think of him as like, you want to play him in off angles and, you're really focused on like taking care of flyers. But in reality, if you're playing him kind of into like the meatball and just kind of trying to pull healers into the group with you, like that's a lot of how Bucky is played in higher elos. And so that's kind of how I've been trying to play him in quick play. And it's a lot of fun when it works, and you can kind of pull enemy healers into your team, and everyone just fucks up that healer, and you win the fight. So
you should post that hexa kill you got. I mean, you wiped the whole team, didn't you?
It was a hexa kill, but it was kind of a cheater hexa kill because I got the thing off of that BRB res that for some reason got thrown out.
Okay, because you didn't get the ace, but yeah, that makes sense.
But no, I was freaking out. But I think what was an even better play was that 3K that I had on stream when you and me were playing in that domination round when like the rest of the team just like wasn't doing anything, and I ulted and somehow got 3 kills and was like, oh, we just won the point now. But no,
yeah, right.
But no, I've also been playing a lot of Mantis and having a lot of fun with her too. She's like
I really enjoyed it.
She's a really fun like tempo style support player. Like you can really,
she's kinetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, she that's what I really like about her too. I mean, just from the get go, as soon as you start to roll out of spawn, I mean, she's just, you can feel how kind of quick she is. She's kind of visibly like she's bouncing, she's jiggling up and down. She's ready to go, and you can really feel that in her gameplay too. And I mean, if you can kind of manage those, not necessarily the cooldowns, but if you can manage her leads, whatever they're called, if you can manage to kind of get that perfect balance between heal and buff, and you can kind of do it for yourself too. You kind of have 3 different angles you can play with her, and I mean that kind of just adds to that kinetic, frenetic feeling. I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to have tons of time to talk about every single one of the heroes in this game later in this episode, Seth, because we are going to be doing our official 1.5 hero tier list later on in the episode. So I'm excited about that. But before we get into that, we do have tons of news to talk about. Well, not tons of news, but enough news. More news than we had last week to talk about. So let's jump right into this and let's talk about the news that just came out today. We have a brand new game mode that just got announced, and it is called Clone Rumble. I'm pulling this over from the subreddit. So essentially this is a mode that's coming out on, I think, the 7th and it's loading. So apologies if I'm going to lose frames or something. My computer's been acting absolutely insane over the last week, guys. So if anything's acting wonky on like the stream end of it, I apologize. But yeah, so Clone Rumble. This is going to be essentially in Spawn. The team will choose a character, and that character, all 6 players will play as that character, and you will play for an objective. So it's basically like the standard game mode, except all 6 of the same characters. Seth, what do you think about this?
I love it. I saw it. I was really excited about it. It kind of reminded me, as we mentioned before, about those times 6 May in Overwatch 1, just wall after wall after wall. And I was watching the clip and seeing like literally Groot is like Fortnite style building fortresses. It reminded me of the old days. So I'm really excited. It looks like it's going to be maddening, but in some fun ways. I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about the kind of looks like a board game style event that kind of goes along with it. I'm kind of curious as to how all that plays out, or how those two things play into each other. But yeah, it looks like it's something else to look forward to and kind of keep the game going.
Yeah, it's called Galacta's. What is it? Galacta's Cosmic Adventure is the board game, and it's right here near the end that you get to kind of see the board game. So you'll get to kind of progress through the event. Hold on, I'll share it when it pops up again. If it pops up again. Oh, there it is. Whoop. Dude. Computers, man. One of these days, I'll learn how to operate one. So yeah, dude, why is my computer being crazy all the time? All the time now.
Well, I just don't know.
But anyway, yeah, it's gonna be like a board game event. You're gonna unlock some stuff. There's this Widow skin, the like 1872 skin, I think is what it is.
That's the part I'm least excited about, if we're being honest. But I mean, it is a nice aesthetic. It is cool.
So here's the board game. There is a mystery like item at the end that you're gonna unlock. I've seen some people speculating that this is the 1872 Iron Man skin. Like Iron Man needs another skin in the game.
I'll take it.
But to match the aesthetic, there's also like 340 credits in this free event up for grabs or something like that. Somebody did the math on what's on this board, so like tons of cool stuff to unlock there. I really just love the cadence of the content updates that are coming to the game. I think there's a lot to look forward to. Each and every I mean, what is this? It's like a new event every month, basically.
It seems that way, yeah. At least, I mean, if you can, plus if you count on top of that the seasonal events too, like releasing every few days, or like at least a different part of it with challenges every few days. I mean, it's constant, and I love it. I hope they can keep up that pace. It seems like it would be hard to do, especially losing devs and whatnot. But I'm in for it as long as they can keep it up.
It's honestly the first game since probably Destiny where I've really cared about like my dailies and stuff like that. So they've really done a good job of like just the gameplay loop and keeping me hooked and just wanting to make progress in a game that, I mean, even like in Overwatch, I was never really in it for the content that was coming. I just logged on because I like playing the game. But there's the Widow skin that's coming with this update. Looks pretty cool. I'm not much of a cosmetic guy, and especially if it's not a character that I particularly care about. Seth, I do have a question for you about this Clone Rumble game mode. What do you think is going to be the most fun character to have 6 people rolling deep as, and what do you think is going to be the most infuriating 6 characters to roll up against?
That's a tough call because I feel like every single possibility is going to be infuriating in some way or another. There was a Reddit comment on that thread where somebody mentioned, am I just imagining Luna Snows ulting one after the other just to stay alive for a solid, 5 minutes or something like that. Um, I can imagine just spider webs flying all over the place from Spider-Man stacking ults. And I don't know. Just in general, I mean, I can see group games getting kind of frustrating because they're just going to be mazes of walls, just
Mm,
trying to, and you're slow as hell anyway. So just trying to figure out your way around to maybe get to the objective or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of potential for fun. Again, kind of like some maddening fun, but um, oh god, Punisher turrets. I think they showed those in the clip too, right?
yeah.
6 Punisher turrets up at the same time around a point. I don't know. But
I'm such a negative Nancy because I can only think about things that are going to be infuriating to play against, like Namor, just 12 octopuses chilling.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
six
And they
Penny
did they
Parkers.
prominently featured that in the trailer.
Yeah, 6 Penny Parkers. Um, especially if you're playing offense on any kind of like a push map where you're trying to make any kind of progress. I mean, they're going to be able to set up on some maps 3 spider nests per spawn door. um, so that'll be infuriating to deal with. I agree, Groot. Groot will be fun though too. I think as a team to play around, and the number of ults I think will be fun too. I think 6 invisible women will be fun. 6 invisible womans. There we go. Womans. Um, just like where the heck is everybody? Like running around with your invisibility. Um, but yeah, no, I'm kind of getting pre TSD. Thinking about Penny Parker, 6 Penny Parkers. It's gonna be a nightmare. But Luna Snow is gonna suck
Yeah.
too. Just getting constantly frozen by snowballs, or 6 Squirrel Girls, just the spam damage, or 6 Squirrel Girl ults all at one time.
Hmm.
Hmm. All right, moving on before I get not excited about this. Um,
Did you talk yourself out of it?
this story is from over on Game Rant. Marvel Rivals like game with DC characters is a possibility, according to James Gunn. This is from Joe Craig at Game Rant. It says James Gunn, the director steering DC Studios towards a new dawn with CEO Peter Safran, has recently commented on a Marvel Rivals style game with DC characters, and the boss would thankfully be open to the idea. DC has dished out its fair share of games in its longevity, including Gotham Knights, Batman Arkham Shadow on the MetaQuest 3, and Injustice 2. However, none quite reached the height of Rocksteady Studios' Arkham series, but Marvel Rivals has perhaps paved the way for a hero shooter on the horizon. Where's the quote? Here we go. Speaking to Comic Book, during a recent DC Studios event, Gunn was asked about the possibility of a DC version of Marvel Rivals. Quote, totally possible. I'd be open to it, end quote, Gunn replied, which is a positive response that teases DC's foot in the hero shooter genre. Seth, I'm not going to read any more because this is basically a non-story, just to kind of get into the idea of what you would think about a DC version of Marvel Rivals.
I mean, could it be cool? Yeah. I don't know how much. I'm excited about this kind of upcoming phase. I'm also somewhat of a DC fan too. I tend to lean Marvel, but I do love those characters and those stories. So they're some of the best, of all time. They hold up. But I, if for the things that I've read and seen that James Gunn says, I think that he is just selling DC with all his heart and soul. And so, like, I don't know. Have you read too or much into like some of the other tidbits that he's kind of said about like their what he wants to do with DC games and all that kind of moving forward?
No.
So again, I can't like quote exact articles or anything like that, but basically the idea seems to be that like he really wants to have a gaming universe that's interconnected with the cinematic universe, and that kind of like they coexist and interplay off of each other, which could be awesome, but could also be really difficult and really hard to pull off. But just in general, I feel like he is so excited, or at least trying to be so excited and push this new phase of DC that he I don't know, like I feel like he's kind of saying anything at this point to try to get people to get asses in the seats, if that makes sense. And that's fine. I'll take it. My ass will be in the seat. But I just don't feel like I see this happening, especially if he's just like, I'm open to it. That because these things take 10 years, or at least a while to kind of cook or simmer. So by the time something like this happened, hero shooters may not even be a thing anymore.
It's such an like inconsequential thing to say I'm like open to, right? Like,
And it kind of makes me feel like, like especially with the other commentary that he's had about his kind of vision for DC games, like, well, how much do you actually know about games? But again, he's a master at what he does, so I don't want to judge his ideas or anything like that. But maybe this is a little bit out of his expertise. Who knows? But,
well, and I would also hope that they wouldn't just be like, yeah, we're gonna do a DC hero shooter. Like, if you're gonna do another multiplayer, like there's other genres of multiplayer games that you could do. And again, like it's such a nothing burger just to be like, oh yeah, like sure, why not? Like why would you slam a door of something that could maybe happen 7-8 years down the road, right? Like what it took
yeah,
Marvel Rivals 6 years to be developed or whatever. But yeah, I would hope that they wouldn't just be like, yeah, sure, we're gonna make Marvel Rivals clone of this Overwatch clone, like
yeah, a clone of a clone. Yeah, I'm shy. Like I think when I heard about Rivals, I kind of have the same attitude. Like, why the hell would they do that? Like we already have this game, but now here I am. I'm not doing an Overwatch 2 podcast. I'm doing a Rivals podcast and loving every minute of it, baby.
yeah, boom, boom, boom. All right, last story on our list. This will be a quick one, and then we'll get right into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, the tier list. Last week, servers went down for just a couple hours, and NetEase responded by giving everyone 200 credits. Said, "Hey, sorry guys, we saw the issue, noticed the issue, fixed the issue. Here's some credits." And I just gotta say, nice. Man, what's that? Go ahead.
Oh, you go for it. Go for it.
I just gotta say, man, like I've received a lot less for a lot bigger problems, right? Like
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, go for it.
I mean, it's what, $2,
yeah,
in game currency, which sounds like a pittance, but like you said, I've bought games. We've mentioned before, kind of in passing about like anecdotes about the PS4 era where you'd buy a game on launch day and bring that game home. You go to the midnight release, you pop it open, you pop it in, download your update, however long that takes, and then the game is unplayable because whatever. And I never saw a dime for that. This game, I think we were in the middle of playing, got out of a match, took a break for 2 minutes and logged back in, and it wouldn't work. We just couldn't find a match. And I think my servers were down for I wasn't able to play for an hour. Maybe I got off, I did something else. I came back an hour later and it was working just fine. So, I mean, I'll take the $2. I think this is definitely a cool goodwill move. And, probably fueled in some part by some of the ill will stuff that they were going through over the last couple of weeks. So I'm sure that probably had a little something to do with it in a meeting room somewhere, but I'll take it again. That's I got my who did I buy this week? Was it what skin did I buy this week? Oh, my Thing skin. I think that's where that went right to the Thing.
Yeah. There were some people who probably didn't even know that the servers went down. They just got 200 credits. They were like, "What the hell? This is great."
Yeah, I had kids at school talking about it at practice. They were like they logged in for the first time since the week before or something like that. They were like, "Oh, hell yeah!" And then I said, "Don't say hell," and it was a whole thing.
You now have detention, and I get your 200 credits.
Congratulations, your credits are mine.
But nah, cool move by NetEase. And if anyone else over at their offices want to trip over a wire and plug it back in about 30 minutes and give me 200 more credits, I'm all for it. So, all right, man. Well, you ready to jump into our very first official tier list for Rival Banter?
Yeah, what the hell?
This is just content farming by us, by the way. You know, tier lists are like the easiest thing in the universe for us to do. But we love it. We know you love it. And what the hell, guys? Like, it's a new season, new patch, new characters included. And did I include the link with the new characters? I sure didn't. Let me find the actual. Tier maker with it. And while I do that, I will introduce what we're doing with this tier list. So,
Introduce me.
so Seth, what we're going to be doing, there's a lot of ways that we can do a tier list, right? We can talk about, strength in the highest elos. We can talk about easiest characters to climb with. We can talk about, we can rank them based on characters we would most want to take out on a date. And maybe that'll be next week's episode. But what I wanted to do for this week's episode is just a general strength tier list. So thinking about these characters across elos, we have played with these characters all the way from bronze up to diamond, right? And we've watched a lot of pro play at this point too. You and I both watched the EMEA tournament over the weekend. We both watched a little bit of that Asian Invitational the week before. So, we have a little bit of an idea about, how the pro meta is starting to shape out and things like that. Thank you so much. And so here's how these tiers are going to break down. This is what I'm thinking. And, we'll work as hard as we can to get to a consensus on these. But for S tier, these are going to be our meta-defining characters. So these are strong across all ranks. People in bronze are good at these, can be good at these characters, all the way up to top 500. They have the highest impact, fewest weaknesses. A tier, consistently strong. There's some counterplay, some skill requirement. B tier, they're viable, need some specific conditions, comps or skills. C tier, they work in niche cases, but they're generally weaker. And then D tier, they're weak, probably need a buff, struggle across all ranks. They're rarely a good pick. Now, listen, here's the thing. As with all characters, there are people that are going to be able to pop off with anybody, with anyone, right? Like, there are top 500 people out there playing Black Widow. Like, there are people who are just mechanically gifted and can make things work with anybody. So don't go being like, oh my gosh, I have a 78% win rate with Rocket Raccoon or whatever. Like, when we go to put these characters in whatever rank, right? We're going to try to justify where we put them. But, keeping in mind that there are edge cases for these characters, we're going to try to keep it general and across the board for just the general player across all ranks. So, Seth, any other thoughts before we jump into this?
No, I'm ready to go. I want to make sure that I'm in the right link, that I don't see the Thing and Human Torch on this. Okay.
Let me drop the right one in. I thought I had replaced it. There's the new one in the show notes.
There we go. I'm in like sin.
All right. So we are going to go by class. I think that's the best way to do it. I said we go Vanguard Strategist, and then we just end with DPS, since DPS has the most. I am a believer, Seth, and I don't know how you think philosophically, but I think if a tier exists, there needs to be a character in that tier, right? So I don't think that it... I see a lot of people make these tier lists, and there's like 17 characters in S tier and like nobody in D tier, and it makes no sense to me. So I'm going to at least try to advocate for some evenness to go about here.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree. Well, never mind. You said we're starting with strategists. We'll get to DPS eventually. I was about to say, well, we can all agree Black Widow can go in the D tier. Yeah. But we'll get there, and we're going to say it again here imminently.
Oh, awesome. Sweet. The whole tier list shows up in the TikTok overlay as well. Awesome. All right, let's start. We're actually going to start with our Vanguards here, Seth. This is actually the hardest. I struggled with this one because I was trying to think through this a little bit while I was... what's presentation mode do? I don't like that. All right, never mind. Okay, here we go. I struggled with this one a little bit more than I did with any of the other classes, just because, I don't play as much tank. But let's talk about Captain America first. Captain America had the most changes in this patch, the most positive changes in this patch.
Yeah.
Because
He did, and
go ahead.
sorry, he did, and I mean that. I think that should definitely elevate him. I'm not sure that he's, I would not put him in an S tier as of right now. But I mean, I think he's. Well, I don't know. You keep going with what you were gonna say. I'm still cooking over here.
Yeah, I was gonna say if this was a season one ranking, he probably would have been a D or C tier. I think right now, Cap is probably a B tier. I think there's
Yeah,
stronger tanks than him right now, but and he's not gonna put up a lot of big kill numbers. He's not gonna put up a lot of flashy stats, but I think if you're mechanically skilled with him, like his skill ceiling is high, and if you know how to work his kit, he can be a menace in the back line. He can be really really hard to kill. But I just think there's other tanks that you can do a lot more with having to do a lot less with them. That's the only. I'd put him a little bit higher if he had a little bit more kill pressure, but I only think B because he's much more of just kind of he's hard to deal with. He's more of an annoyance than he is like a kill threat.
yeah. I think he's always kind of had that, like, maybe again, like you said, not as much kill pressure. He has a lot of potential to kind of just like build up some damage. But I think these updates and his, his speed increases have kind of like upped what he can do. Um, so B, I feel like that works for me too. He's not quite, top tier, but he's still, it can be done. You can make it work if you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about Strange. What are your thoughts on
S
Strange?
baby,
Yeah, I think
S baby, he all the way. He's. I mean, I see him all the time. I feel like every match that I play at some point is going to have a Strange. I mean, because he does it all, right? He flies, he shields, he ports. He's the only character that has really an ability like that, unless you kind of count magics. So, I mean, he's pretty singular, pretty unique, and I mean, it's kind of hard to go wrong with picking him unless you just don't know how to play him at all.
Mm-hmm. He's got such a like consistent damage profile. His ultimate ability is fight changing. Teleport is so many unique ways to get value out of it too. I mean, you see pro teams doing crazy stuff like on point three of like Idrisil, like on offense blocking spawn doors and stuff. Like he's such a unique character. He did have a little bit of a nerf, and he's still almost 100% pick presence in a lot of pro matches, and like you said, even on the ladder, he's there almost every match too. So definitely S tier for me as well.
100%.
All right, definitely S tier for me as well. Your thoughts on Groot here?
There's a lot of potential for him, but again, I feel like he's kind of in that cap area. But maybe a little bit more viable, a little bit more competitive, especially with his ult. That can be a game changer in a big team fight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm going to go A. What do you say?
I think A, and I think A for a couple reasons. You touched on one. I think one, his ult is just puts him leagues above Cap. Like his ult is a fight changer. I think the second reason is flyers are such a big part of the meta, like we're going to talk about when we get to DPS. And Groot and Strange are really the only two tanks at the moment who have anything in their kit right now who are able to deal with flyers. Like Groot shockingly has some range on his like primary fire. He's got like, I don't know, like a 25 meter range, I think, on his little arms. So, he can.
They ain't little.
Yeah, they ain't little. But he can be a little bit of a nuisance. But I also think, like, look, are his walls more impactful if you're throwing them in between like healers and tanks and separating players off from their team? Sure. But if I'm in the lower ranks, am I getting value off of them by just like cutting people off and getting them in the way of other people? Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what you said about like a lot of his downsides, but I think he's pretty easy to pilot. He's a huge target for healers to hit and kind of keep you alive. His health pool's gigantic. His health pool gets even more gigantic when his walls are up. So yeah, I agree with you. I think he's definitely A tier. All right. What about our boy Bruce and the Hulk? What are you thinking for him?
Bruce, I love that character. He's one of the first characters that I played. He's a lot of fun. He reminds me of Diva, who was a dear sweet love of mine when I played Overwatch. I I think he's picked so low. I don't know if those numbers have updated since the last time we talked about kind of the pick rates for some of these characters, but I think he just isn't quite as strong a pick as like again a Strange. So I don't think I could put him S tier. But if you get that Hulk and Iron Man team up,
Mm-hmm.
like with the gamma radiation, I mean that's can be a game changer too. I mean that can change fights in a lot of different ways as long as you've got somebody solid behind Iron Man. So um, I don't want to go lower than a B for him, but I don't know if I'm as high as an A. What do you think?
I'm teetering between B and C for him, honestly. So I think B is probably where we'll end up, given where you're at. But yeah, I think Hulk is hard to play because I think you have to really be mindful of his jump and when to get out. With the lack of there being dive healers in this game and healers that are able to kind of go and get in the riffraff with you, it's really on you to understand when to get out of a fight. And Hulk has his little overshield that he can deploy, but it's on a pretty like aggressive cooldown, or pretty like punitive cooldown when you use it. And
Hmm.
it doesn't offer as much protection as say like the Venom E does when like he gets his overshield. Um, and so Hulk has to really understand like his tempo and understand when to get out of fights. Um, and also his jump is a lot harder to execute, I think, than Venom's to like deal with people that are above his head and stuff like that. So, you know, I if you were on the A B line and I'm on the B C line, I think we should put him in that B tier. I also think his ult is good for like prolonging a fight. But in all reality, it's just like a big bag of ult charge for the enemy team.
It's just kind of a little bit when you really boil it down. I mean, what is it? It gives you what like 200 to 400 extra health, something like that. You get a lot bigger. So, like you said, you're a big target. I watched one of those Hulks. I had never seen it before, but I watched somebody playing it today, and they were in a team fight. They thought they could change the game and save the team by dropping that ult. And I mean, they everybody just focused him. He melted like that. I mean, so it can be if maybe, but really, again, he is he kind of has that Groot thing where he's that big damage sponge if you're not playing him just right.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Magneto. I'll start with Magneto. I think Magneto's still really strong. I think they tried to do some nerfs to his sustain, and I think in a lot of ways it did help to take. He would have been S tier in season one. I think that the nerfs moved him out of S tier and probably put him into A tier. His damage profile is a little bit better now because of his primary fire buffs, but his ultimate ability is still super impactful. You saw how a really well played Magneto can kind of nerf a cloak in a match when he's really holding his ult for a cloak ult to wait
Hmm.
for her to finish her ult and you can just kill her within her ult. Um, his bubbles can really empower his team in their ults and stuff like that. I think his knockback can do a lot to displace DPS, especially when you have dive characters coming in. If you're playing with a Wanda, especially in lower ranks, then his team up ability with her is super super strong. So I think Mag is still an A tier character even with some of those nerfs.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, I was tempted to put him in S, but I agree with you in a lot of those ways. I definitely, it was frustrating. That was the first time I'd really run in playing with you. I think last night or the night before. It was last night, wasn't it? Where I just could not stay alive because that mag just kept throwing those meteors at me. And I mean, I don't know where he was getting them from. It was like Joe Dirt all over again. But yeah, I definitely see the value in Magneto.
And it's also cool. You'll probably notice this the more you watch pro play, and if you ever watch like top 500 play and stuff. Like Mag also uses his ult to like empower his teammates and protect them as well, because it has like defense matrix properties, right? Because it like
Mhm.
absorbs projectiles. So you'll see like Star Lord's ulting, and so Mag will ult in order to protect his Star Lord from getting shot while he's ulting and stuff like that. So there's a lot of utility for his ultimate too. So yeah, he's probably like, we're not tiering these within the tiers, but I would probably go like Mag over Groot in the A tier, because he is probably on that line.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go to Penny Parker,
PP.
the good old PP.
I'm going A. I'm just gonna. She can be so game changing. Like if you, especially on defense. I don't know that I want to go lower because I mean she can be an S tier character in a lot of ways. I mean, just that those minefields, they can make it impossible to do anything. So I mean, if you do those, set them up just right, you kind of hide them, you work with your team to shield them. That can buy you numerous minutes. Her ult is, not maybe the greatest, but it can definitely prolong a fight. And she can put out some damage just even with her, her regular fire, her right trigger. But um, she's not so great on assaults unless you just really know what you're doing. And again, I've definitely seen my share of pennies who just don't really know what it means to be a tank. They think that since she has that defensive web network that you've got to just kind of fall back and snipe, and that's just not who she is. She's a tank player like a tank. So I'm gonna go A. I could be maybe talked down to a B. I don't know if I feel like she's an S necessarily, but what are your thoughts?
I struggle with Penny because I can be talked into anything from an A to a D. I think with Penny, because she's so situational, right? Like I think if we're talking if we're doing a tier list for point A defense, Idrisil, then I'm putting Penny as an S, right? Like, but
Sure, yeah.
if I'm talking, like point C offense, Idrisil, I'm putting Penny in C tier, right? Like,
Well, how about let's go B for her because you kind of talked me into going down a little bit because you are right. I mean, she's not necessarily useless, but you've got to really think strategically about like where you're placing your minefields and stuff like that, especially if you're on two-thirds of the game modes, right? Convergence or convoy. You've got to, the point's constantly moving, so you've got to constantly be moving that thing. It's maybe not quite as valuable as you get to some of those, like between checkpoints, if that makes
mhm.
sense. But
Well, and there's also just so much counterplay for her. Like, there's certain characters that if they are on the map, then you just can't be in the server. Like, if there's an Iron Man or a Storm who can just fly above your nest and target it, right? Like, you're gonna have a hard time as a Penny. And so, yeah, I think a B tier is fine for her. I could be argued into an even lower on her. I wish she had a little bit more of sustain, but I do think like she has really short CC, like short cooldown on her CC, and it's hard CC too, right? Like she can hit flyers out of the sky and ground them with her web. So like I think she has a lot of really good stuff in her kit. It's just uh the stuff that makes her the strongest is so situational.
sure.
All right, well let's talk. Well, we're getting into the last two. Well, two of the last three here are two of your big mains. So let's talk about Thor.
Or I I do not think that he's S. I can say that. I want to go A just because I do enjoy him so much, and I think that he is a really great aggressive. Maybe not necessarily main tank, but off tank. He's just got so much power, and if you can manage his cooldowns, I mean, you can be just a constant force. Um, so I don't know. I'm torn between a B and an A for him. I kind of want to lean A just because again he is so tough. when you pop those lightning bolts and you just start throwing lightning. I mean, that's something I love to charge into a fight with. I back up for 2 seconds, I come right back in with it, and it's like I'm just throwing softballs, and it feels good. He's just so kinetic. You're in, you're out. He's not quite like a dive character necessarily, I guess. Would you consider Thor to be dive?
I mean, I think he can be played in a. I think he can be played in a dive way. I would consider him more of a brawl character, though.
Yeah, you'd have to manage his cooldowns really well because I mean, you have to kind of buy a little bit of time and last in the fight before you can jump right out. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go A just because I feel like I see a lot of Thor. He does tend to be pretty valuable, I feel. Especially if you pair him with a shield tank. But you've got somebody there with him, and as long as the heals are there, he can just wail on whoever's in front of him.
I'm gonna
A lot of motion too. Sorry, a lot of like he can get pretty much anywhere you need him to be, except for some of those really high flyers. I mean, you can get up in the air and at least to a degree and do some damage too. So he's everywhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna trust your judgment on the Thor stuff. I honestly don't understand a whole lot of Thor's kit. I kind of understand what he's supposed to be doing in a fight. I don't understand necessarily how he's doing it. But
Way of the gods.
one thing I do want to think about in these is like, especially if we're thinking about across all ranks, right? Like if you're playing in bronze, silver, and gold, especially, you're playing a lot of 1-3-2, a lot of 1 tank, 3 DPS, 2 healer. And in terms of viability as a solo tank, your Groots, your Mags, your Stranges, really strong solo tank options. I think you're starting to fall off a little bit when you're talking about Thor. When Cap, I think, is a little bit weaker of a solo tank. I think Penny is almost impossible to play as a solo tank. Things like that.
Yeah, I see her still a lot in Diamond for some reason, but whatever. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Diamond, but yeah, I agree. I would definitely consider most of those to be more kind of like old school off tanks in a way. Just when you have those strong characters with those shields, they can just soak up the damage. I definitely see more value in them. I feel like Thor is just so kind of versatile that I could still see him in that A tier.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Venom. I honestly think Venom is probably an S tier tank right now.
After the post patch, yeah, 100%. Again, you kind of have to know what you're doing. Have to know how to dive. But if you can manage those cooldowns, just like with any character, but I mean, really, he's a force of nature. Like if you don't focus him, if you don't have like some cooperation with your team, you're not gonna kill him, and he's just gonna be in and out. He's gonna do whatever the hell he wants to.
Rewind the podcast and replay everything that I said about Hulk, and take everything negative that I said about Hulk and spin it to the positive, and that's Venom, right? Like,
yeah,
Venom has the ability to dive into the backline. He has a get out of jail free card with his E that gives him like 1,000 health or something like that if you pop it at the right time. Like, the lower his health is, the bigger the shield you get. If you time it right, you can just swing right out of there and never be seen again.
Until you want to be. And he's got that Spider-Man thing too, where I mean, he can crawl around a wall and like hide up on a tall building, and then he can just swoop around the corner as soon as he's ready, plow, and then get right out, and as soon as he wants to, exactly when he means.
And he's
like a wizard.
Yeah, and he's a true dive tank. Like he has that ability to, dive into the back line. His ability to not just knock players up now, but knock players into his abilities and towards him, I think, is good. I think the changes to both his ult charge and the way his ultimate applies damage and directional CC have been big changes for him as well. And I think at times he can be decently unkillable. So, and I don't think he takes a whole lot of. I think he takes a whole lot of skill to be good with. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think he takes a whole lot of skill to be disruptive with. Whereas I think with Hulk, it takes skill to be disruptive with him too. Because we've seen Hulks just jump in and die with him a lot.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, for sure.
All right, let's talk about him. Let's talk about. Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
My man. Um, I mean, we're seeing him in comp some. You've watched more than I have. How much are you seeing him in the pro matches right now?
I mean, for that first weekend in Asia, I felt like I saw him like 100% presence, whether he was either banned or he was picked. So,
Hmm.
this weekend in Europe, it was a little bit less, but I mean, he was still there quite a bit.
I mean, he's simple. I mean, he just throws punches. But if he's got, he's a force of nature too. I mean, he runs in, he plows in, and I mean, he's a simple character, like figuratively, I guess, because he's just a big meathead. In the Marvel universe in a lot of ways, with feelings, but whatever. He's kind of just this big hunk who just charges in and gets stuff done. So I mean, I really enjoy his play style. I think if you can manage to kind of tread that line between being aggressive and too aggressive, then he can be a force to be reckoned with, and especially if you kind of use his like his left bumper, his L1, in a fight, to jump back when you need health or when you need to get away. You can almost play him with like a little bit of a dive strategy. When between his two bumpers, R1 with the charge, Yancey Street charge, I think it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then his kind of jump back to do his damage buff, or not damage buff, his damage resist. So I'd be comfortable giving him an A. I don't know if I feel like he's a B. I don't know if I feel like he's an F right now. What do you say?
Yeah, I think he's probably A somewhere. I mean, again, we're not really tiering these, but he's probably here at the Thor level of A. Um, I do think that his ability to kind of run past the front line and really be a nuisance in the back line you know, uh, is good. I think if he can get a knock up on a healer, and he can combo that into a haymaker, he can kind of two tap a lot of the 250 characters, um, and that's punishing. I do think I agree with your earlier point that you really do have to balance that over aggression with him because he doesn't have that many escape tools, and so it's really easy to kill him when he's out once he's out of his cooldowns. He doesn't have a whole lot of like get out of jail free. He can't throw up a wall. He can't slingshot out of there or anything like that. Like, sure, he has the ability to jump to a nearby person and get a little bit of damage reduction. He does
But
get a
you've got
little.
to play it just right. The distance is hard. As someone who plays, a fair amount of him, it's a lot of the times I do lose fights because I misjudge the distance to where I can jump back to somebody. So it's a delicate balance for sure.
And he does get a little bit of a bump because he has a strong team up ability with one of the best healers in the game too. So that helps him out quite a bit too. So no, I think this looks pretty good. And I think this is pretty well tiered. I think for how I would rank these within the tiers as well. You ready to move on to strategists?
Yeah, let's roll, baby.
All right, let's talk Adam Warlock.
Adam Warlock, solid C for me. So,
Mm.
he's got damage. I just don't. Other than that res, I mean, he's got a pretty huge ult. I I see him having more value in like those three healer comps, especially on like defensive matches. Because you can do a lot with him there, but I mean, just in like a two healer setup, I just there's so much more that can be done. I think with other healers. So I mean, I think he's pretty solidly in that C category for me. You could talk me into a B, maybe, but I'm pretty set in C at the time.
Yeah, I was teetering between B and C. If this was just like a high elo pro meta kind of thing, I would probably be teetering A B for him. But I think when you're talking about a lot of 222, like you're saying, I would much rather have healers like Luna, like Invisible Woman, like Cloak and Dagger. When my heals are on such a restrictive cooldown, like Adam Warlocks are, and I'm having it, cooldown management is not something that your bronze, your silver, your gold players are really known for. You see a lot of soul bonds being thrown out at the like worst times imaginable, and then you're on a 30-second cooldown on that, right? So again, C is not necessarily because his kit is bad. It's just to get the most out of his kit, you're going to have to do a whole lot more rather than like a Cloak and Dagger where you're going to be able to get just as much utility out of her kit, having to do a lot less in terms of just like mechanical and mental keeping up with what's at your disposal. So yeah, I think you're right with Adam Warlock being kind of further down on this list. I do think the damage buffs to him, are good. I think it makes him a fun character to play. His passive ability to kind of res himself is strong, and his ultimate can be dynamic and fight changing too. But yeah, too much to keep up with when there's other strategists on the board who just press the heal button, baby, and go, 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 go.
Yeah, I hold it down, man. Yeah, who's next?
Cloak and Dagger.
A. Yeah, A. I
Yeah,
think.
I was gonna say A too.
I think maybe like pre-patch, I would say maybe she's an S. But I mean, she's definitely up there. I mean, I rarely play a game, even when I'm not playing her. I rarely play a game without her, because I mean, she's that easy to really play. And if you just heal with her, that's great. You're going to be really valuable to your team and put up some high healing numbers. But if you can do it, and you can like get into this kind of flow state, she's really like playing two characters because you've got that damage, that almost DPS character, like almost like a mini Scarlet Witch with Cloak, and with who's just a lot of fun to play too. And so I've started to find, as I've gotten into Diamond and I've gotten more and more hours in with her, I almost find this flow state where I'm just like juggling the cooldowns between two different characters. I've got kind of a claw thing going on. I've got both sets of fingers on both like triggers, and or the bumpers and the triggers, and I'm just switching back and forth constantly. And again, like your staggering cooldowns too, it's a blast. And I'm sure you can reach that state with any character, but I think she's pretty unique in that you're doing it not just one time with her cooldowns, but kind of two times if you're timing them right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. She would have been an S in season one, but yeah, not being able to layer her procs on her ult anymore and the reduction in time that her ult lasts and stuff like that. But still one of the most well-rounded support characters in the game. The damage output that she has, the auto aim on her primary fire, yeah, can't
Top
go.
notch.
Can't.
And really she's a great counter for some of those flying characters. I've taken out quite a few storms. She's really one of the only, I mean, we talked about it with the Vanguards. I don't know if there's any other support that really does the same kind of thing as she does, to where you can just take out um, those flying characters as long as they're not just totally up at the top of the map. And at that point, what are those flyers really doing? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Um. All right, next is Jeff. Jeff for me is gonna have to be in D, right?
Yeah, that's what I was between C and D. You nailed it for me. Week one, maybe month one of the game, S tier, God tier, because like people just didn't understand him, or they hadn't kind of figured out those cues to kind of know when to expect him. But now, I mean, I may still get caught up in those whirlpools when he goes to ult, but I mean, I've gotten to the point where you kind of know where he's going to go. You know when he's coming. You've got that audio cue. You kind of hear him sneaking up. You hear the bell. And so I'm almost every time now, even when I do get caught, I'm right there at the edge of that whirlpool. I've got like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a lot less viable now than he was in that first kind of phase of the game launching.
Yeah, yeah. And the Jeffs you see that are popping off now are like the Jeffs that are going to the back line and like playing
Backline Jeff, baby.
assassin and
He's kind of evolved into a DPS character almost. I mean, he can be maybe cool. I've seen him pop off in some like 3 healer setups, but
yeah.
I mean, even then, it's rare. I feel like when I see that Jeff, I'm gonna see him with, like 2K damage and like 500 healing. So I mean, I just don't see enough action from him to make him any higher on the list.
Yeah, but he's got 14 final hits somehow.
Right, right. He's just sneaking them in there, baby.
All right, let's talk about Loki.
Loki's tough. I mean, I want to lean S, because there is so much that you can do with him. I mean, you can make people pretty much invincible for a time if the other team especially doesn't know kind of what to do against those beacons. What do you call them? Do you call them beacons? What are they?
Beacons, totems, lamps. I have no idea.
Totems, maybe. Whatever they are. I mean, they work. He's kind of a 3-in-1. Like he can be, if you're quick, he can be hard to kill. He can turn invisible and get out of a fight whenever he wants to. He does have a lot of buttons to press though, and so that kind of makes him a tough character to play well. But if you understand him, I think even without being in a high ELO, if you just kind of grasp what he can do, then he's pretty powerful. So I want to lean S. I don't want to go any lower than A, but again, I can be talked.
Well, you don't have to talk me into anything. He's going into S for all the reasons you just said, but also because you just get 2 Luna Snow ults, all right? Like...
Yeah, true. I'm not even thinking about ults. I get confused often because I'm like, they just fucking ulted. What is going on here? And then I'm like, wait a second. They've got that Loki, right?
You're like, is this the greatest Luna Snow of all time?
Like, how are they doing this? Like that witch just ulted 10 seconds ago. What is the deal? Like, and especially if it's the same character I'm playing, I immediately feel inferior. I'm like, I'm not doing nearly enough to support my team. So yeah, that doubles down for me. You can't talk me out. We're going S, baby, all in.
All right, and then there's no discussion needed here, right? Like Luna just goes into S2. She's got 14 seconds of basically making her team invincible. She has hit scan heals from anywhere on the map. She's the only other healer that can really deal with flyers. Like, she's got great self-sustain. She has snowball to deal with backline dive. Like, she's an S tier healer.
I feel like she's a little, yeah, I mean, she's definitely S. I feel like she's maybe a little bit harder to manage just because she doesn't have quite the same auto lock as like your Cloak and Dagger. But again, like that ult alone, or even though it has been that her ult got nerfed last time, right?
The only nerf that it got is that it's on a 1 second cool. It's a little. There's a little bit of a charge nerf. And then there's the nerf that you have to wait 1 second before cycling between damage and heals. You used to just be able to toggle it as fast as you could toggle it.
Yeah. So that ult alone, just the length of time, again, like there's a reason we mentioned it in that new game mode, right? Just it's something else, and it changes games. I mean, literally, if you can hold that for just the right time, then it's literally a lifesaver.
14 seconds is crazy, dude. Like, what's Cloak and Dagger went down to 8 seconds on hers, right?
I think that sounds right. Yeah, from like 10 to 8.
Yeah, they got to do something about that. All right, Mantis.
Mantis. I'm between A and B for her. She is so much fun. She's fast. She's again, like we said earlier, she's like a triple threat. She can buff, she can heal, and then if she can buff herself and to do some pretty strong. Would you say she's hit scan with her?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, she's got a lot of potential. Her heals heal over time. You can heal and buff the same people, or you can kind of spread out. As long as you're accurate. Your different abilities heal and buff the same people, or you can kind of spread out, as long as you're accurate. but I don't know. Like, her ult can be.
You've
Mhm.
got your 4 life orbs that you've got to manage how you're divvying them out, and you have to understand how to juggle the healing with the inspire and that sort of stuff. But she has great CC with her sleep ability, and so like I don't know, maybe she is an A because of those things, and because she does have like crit ability, which is something that not a lot of the other healers do have, and so I don't know, man. Maybe we just go with our gut and we put her in A, but maybe she's ranked underneath the cloak here.
Yeah, let's go with that.
All right. All right. What about Rocket Raccoon?
I'm kind of set at B, kind of smack in the middle. I loathe, like, there's been a point where I loathe every time I see a rocket get picked. I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you throwing the match? You're selling, as the kids say. Um, However, I've had a lot of my feet in a lot of my mouths over the last week or so because I've been out healed as Cloak and Dagger by not many but several Rocket Raccoons. I mean, if they know what they're doing and they're doing their job right, I mean, I can see him being valuable, and he does damage. He does healing, and again, his ult can, or not even his ult, his that BRB, his res machine,
Mm-hmm.
can be a game changer in a fight too, even though it is kind of random based on who dies first when it's out. But I mean, he's got a lot of potential. He's got his damage booster for his ult, um, and he's quick too. He's got that ability to kind of get in and out of fights. He can climb walls. He's pretty quick. But again, I just don't know that he's on par with like a Cloak and Dagger most of the time. I think you've got to be a pretty exceptional, like a Lord Raccoon, Lord Rat, we'll call him, because I prefer to call him Rat. It's quicker in callouts, right? So yeah, I'm B. What do you think?
I'm gonna put him in B just so I don't get yelled at for putting him in C by somebody who's like, I have a 75% win rate on Rocket Raccoon, and I put up
Well,
35,000 healing.
we're on the internet. You're gonna get yelled at just for being here, but like he's mid. I would not. At triple support, he's strong. I think I don't really have a problem seeing him when like you've got to make that change halfway through a game. You realize you need that little extra boost. Um, yeah, go for it. Go for that rocket. But I just don't know that he's um, again the guy you want in there in a 2 healer game.
The thing about Rocket is he's a scoreboard glamour king, right? Like every Rocket's
Yeah,
just gonna look at the scoreboard at the end of the game and be like, I did 42,000 healing. You can't say anything about me. And it's like, you never once fired your weapon. You did 53 damage. Like you did nothing else to help support the team. Like 42,000 healing is cool and all, but like you have other stuff in your kit help your team out. But I also just think you get 6 ultimates on your team. All right, 6. That's it. And you get 2 support ultimates if you're playing 2-2-2. You cannot take up one of those support ultimates with 8 demon joy the amplifier, right? Like you when there is 1, 2, 3, 4 get out of jail free cards and a resurrect your whole team ult, sitting out there on the field. Like Rocket gets a lot of hate, and I think a lot of the hate is probably maybe undeserved, but I think a lot of the hate is well deserved because, and it's not Rocket Main's fault. It's NetEase's fault for designing so many support characters with just get out of jail free ults, and it feels bad when you're going up against another team who has an Invisible Woman and a Luna Snow, and I'm okay, I get 40% extra damage this fight, but I can't kill anybody because there's an Invisible Woman ult out on the field.
Yeah. Again, there's value in that ult. I just I kind of appreciate having it out there as an option, but yeah, I don't think that it's the one you want if you're limited just to 2 healers in your match.
Yeah, for sure. And then finally, easy S tier here is Invisible Woman again. she has a get out of jail free ult in her in her stuff. Um, she has really high healing output, especially in Brawl, because her primary fire bounces. It goes through multiple targets, so she can heal multiple targets. Her shield is really great at healing flyers, but it also does AoE healing for everybody gathered around it, which is awesome. And yeah, her little flying orb, her psionic push or whatever it's called, I don't know, can deal with flyers too, because if it touches an Iron Man or Storm or somebody, it grounds them until they get out of it. So she can deal with flyers as well. So she's an easy S for me. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I would be between S and A. Again, like where she's maybe not quite as accurate as a Cloak and Dagger, of course. I think they're pretty neck and neck for me. Just the fact that her ult, even though it's shorter, is so much stronger, really seals the deal for me. And again, as long as you're somewhat accurate and you know how to manage her cooldowns, I think she's top of the line.
Yeah. All right, Seth. Now we're left down to the DPS. I say we don't go through the DPS like we're going through all these others, unless you want to. I say what we should do with our DPS here is we should go by tier. Let's go who we think is S, who we think is A, so on and so forth. Because number one, we're not DPS players. So, and number two, I think we're going to say a lot of the same things for some of these DPS characters, right?
Yeah, I would imagine we could be surprised, but let's see. You want to start from the bottom or start from the top?
Let's start from the bottom. I think that makes sense. Who are your D tier DPS characters?
Right now for me, Human Torch is the first one that pops out. I could be talked into C for him, just because of his ult potential with Storm, but really, like, I don't see Human Torches popping off in any matches really that I play. It can be a little frustrating. He can be a little annoying, but again, like I'm just not impressed by him so far. What do you think? Do you want to just kind of each go, or do you just want to kind of talk it out?
How about you give me all your D tier? I'll give you, and then we can talk through who you put in D tier, and we'll move them around based off of that conversation. Who else you got?
Works for me. So Human Torch, I would say,
Black Widow.
Maybe. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Black Widow. Yeah. Well, I put her in there. She was one right at the top of the show. Definitely Widow. Looking around, I feel like those are the only two I want to put in D. I feel like C might be is going to be a little bit heavier. But really, maybe Hawkeye. But I think that if somebody, if you're just slightly accurate, he's going to be a force to reckon with. So I kind of am stuck with just those two right now. Crappy Magics would go in D, but I think she also should probably be a little higher.
No, I think I agree with your D tier. I think if there were any other character I'd put in D, maybe Mr. Fantastic right now.
I kind of thought that too, yeah.
But I think he might be in C. But yeah, no. I think Human Torch and Black Widow, the most important thing on DPS right now is burst damage, and those two characters just don't have it in any kind of like consistent way. And that's a theme that's gonna pop up in a couple of these other characters that we're gonna talk about moving forward. But I think right now, you don't get that anywhere in those characters, and their ultimate abilities don't make up any ground for them in that area either. So I would agree, Human Torch and Black Widow in the D tier. Who you got in C? I agree.
C, I'm going
Hawkeye.
Yeah, Hawkeye, I would say C. Again, like I've seen him do some cool things, but it's rare. He's another one that I kind of groan when I see him picked. It's either right or it's wrong. I want to go. Do we do? Oh, well, Fantastic. Let's put Mr. Fantastic in there.
Yeah, Mr. Fantastic.
Okay, so he's in there. Punisher. What do you think about that? I'm kind of torn between C and B for him.
I would put Punisher in B just because he's got a little bit more consistent damage output. His team
And
up
that
with
turret's a force to reckon with too, if you do it right. Yeah.
yeah. His team up with Rocket, I think, makes him a little bit more of a threat. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll keep those two. Other than that, I mean, I feel like a lot of DPS kind of naturally leans a little higher on the poll. What are you thinking? Who else would you add to C?
I got two other characters in my mind, and they're both dive characters. The first
Is it one Wolvie? Is one Wolvie?
no, I got Wolverine high
Okay.
just because I think he can pop off, especially against two tanks, and
Yeah.
um and especially against Brawl. But
Okay.
I think Black Panther is
Mhm.
there. I think his mechanical ceiling is really high. I think you have to be able to land skill shots and follow up on skill shots in order to get a lot of value out of him. I think his ult is very telegraphed, very easy to avoid. And then I just don't think the Iron Fist changes. I don't know if it's that players haven't learned how to like leverage his like percent max health damage changes effectively yet, or what. But I just don't feel like Iron Fist has been even as much a threat as he was even in like season one. So those would be the
Yeah.
other two characters I would think about. See,
Now that you mention that, I definitely do see a lot less Iron Fist. And when I do, he's a lot more manageable. I feel like that he could be. And yeah, Black Panther too. I mean, having played some of him, I know that I'm the problem when I'm not doing well. But you do definitely have to keep a lot in mind playing him. You've got to constantly make sure you've got a way out, and it's kind of hard to do with his setup with his kit. I mean, you've got to like save that one leap or that one kind of like jumping kick, whatever, twisting kick, whatever it is,
mm-hmm.
to be able to get out. So yeah, I could definitely see C for him too.
And then the only other character I would maybe think about C is Wanda, just because of the burst damage thing again. It's like
Yeah, I mean, you get her in the black and the back line. She's a force. So I kind of want to lean up to maybe like a B for her. The joke is that she's a no skill character, which makes her so strong. But I mean, having played her, she's fun, and yeah, it is easy to kind of, just like it's easy to do really well with her. It's also easy to not do so well.
mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Do you think she's a C, or could you be talked into kind of popping her up into the B range?
No, I mean, I think I can be talked into a B range, especially since we're talking about like all ranks. I think you're right. I think she's got a lot of presence in lower tier elos, and um, but I think her ultimate still needs a lot of work. There's too much that can interrupt it. But yeah, we can put her in B. Who else you got in B? Punisher, we decided to put in B.
Yeah, Punisher in B. Maybe
Magic in B.
Yeah, Magic. I'd go in B again. If you've got a good one, she's awesome. But it's rare. The same vein. Dare we? No, I'm not. I'm not putting Spider-Man here. We'll hang on. But he
Wait,
kind of has that.
You think Spider-Man's higher than B?
I was gonna throw him in A, but I mean, but he kind of has. I have trouble with him this for the same reasons I have them with Magic, and I don't know. The only reason I wanted to kind of push him up is I don't know if it's a player thing, if it's the way people play him, or if it's just the character himself. But yeah, like those characters, they're assassins. They just they go in and out. They don't really group fight the same way that lots of other characters do, and so I get that. But then again, I feel like they should. I mean, it's they should still be near the point and not back at spawn, or back at the enemy's spawn or whatever, just trying to rack up kills or rack up damage. So, do you feel like Spider-Man's B? Do you want to go there?
DPS is just weird because I feel like you got to think of it not just in terms of like DPS, but you got to think of it in terms of like dive, right? So it's like if I'm thinking about my dive DPS characters, who are my dive DPS, and would I rather have a Psylocke or would I rather have a Spider-Man? Right? It's like I'd rather have a Psylocke than a Spider-Man.
I would too. I would too.
Would I
So
rather have a
yeah,
Star Lord or a Spider-Man? I'd rather have a Star Lord, right? Like,
yeah. All right. So I'm comfortable then putting Spider-Man in B. I wasn't gonna put him S anyway. So yeah, let's lump Spidey in there. Looking around, Hella.
yeah, Hella's so weird, man, because it's like pro meta, Hella's an S tier
Top
character,
tier.
right?
Yeah.
Silver, you don't ever see Hella, right? Like we're finally in the tier, like we're finally in Diamond, we're finally starting to see some Hella getting played. I think Hella belongs in B just because of that like skill gap, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, she's hard to master. You've got your aim's got to be on point. I love playing her the little bit that I have, and she feels good. But again, like I'm definitely not hitting some of the shots that I should be hitting when I'm playing her. So yeah, I could see definitely right there in the middle ground.
and her ult feels powerful as fuck.
Oh, it is. I mean, you're literally like you get up there, you've got what 10,000 health or something like that. Whatever it is. I mean, I've never seen one get dropped mid ult. Have you?
No, no.
I don't see how it could happen. And you know, it's again, it can be a fight stopper. When if you use it just right.
I think some other easy B tier DPS here. I think this is where like Iron Man would go. I think this is where like Squirrel Girl would go.
You think so?
I mean, I think if we're talking across all elos, yeah, because I do think that like when we're talking about flyers, right? Like I'd rather have a Star Lord. I'd rather have a Storm. Like I'd rather have a good Star Lord. Rather have a good Storm than like a good Iron Man on my team.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, just I don't know. I feel like I see Iron Man, especially kind of in the lower ELOs, I guess. But I see him pop off a lot, and then again that gamma ray, with Hulk. If you've got that team up, I mean, it's a force. So I kind of wanted to lean A with him, but I mean, yeah, I could see him again. You've gotta have that accuracy to some degree with him too. He's got a little burst damage, right? But not necessarily. That's not all he's really good for.
So here was my logic. Let me talk you through my logic here for a second on the three flyers we have left.
Okay.
So for Storm is like easy S tier for me, right? Like she's the most complete
Like,
DPS in the game right now.
she's got support qualities too.
Has support qualities. She's buffing her team. She has one of the most impactful DPS ults in the game if timed right. Her damage profile is insane. I think she's easy S tier, right?
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead and slap her in there.
I think when we're talking between Star Lord and Iron Man, like if we're talking just in the neutral, pretty even, right? Like they do different things in the neutral. Like Iron Man's gonna poke, whereas Star Lord's gonna try to like get in the back line and take out healers and stuff like that. But when we're talking about the ultimate abilities, you're gonna have to invest in protecting your Star Lord to keep him up, but he's gonna get a lot more value out of it than like an Iron Man who's gonna yell something from 30 miles away and everybody's gonna be able to like scatter from it, right? So the ultimate is really the difference maker to me between the two.
Okay, you've sold me.
So that's the only reason I was gonna go like A here and then Iron Man B.
Yeah. Squirrel Girl, I just don't know if I can put her in B. I mean, she's powerful, and you know that ult is, especially since they've kind of buffed her, and changed that ult to where it tracks the nearest person. I mean, it's a constant nuisance for me.
That's true.
And just the burst damage on her acorns as she's launching them. I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time putting her in the middle. I feel like she's, as long as you're not playing her front and center on point or something like that. If you're kind of using her more as a sniper, then I don't know. She's something. But
she's also an
what do you
absolute. She's also an absolute hard counter to thing. So I think I can go A here with it, like she is a tank buster with her acorn, and the fact that she can like cycle that with her. I don't know what the ability's called, like where she can like reload her abilities.
Yeah, yeah, that's really helpful for for anything that she does. And then that Spider-Man team up too, just having the webbed acorns just does that much more damage. So that's kind of my selling point for her is just she's I see her a lot, and I still feel like I still see her in Diamond. And I don't know. I mean, she's just kind of a constant presence, and I feel like that's a big part of that.
Yeah. Um. All right. Well, we're down to I think some of the best remaining DPS here. I know we're running up on time here, so let's knock these last few out here. Who of these last five do you think are the S tier among them?
Yes, I mean, again, we've got to go Storm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's who I think. Moon Knight, definitely. Like I always, whenever I see a Storm, whenever I see a Moon Knight, I know that I'm probably up for a fight in some way or another. I'm up for some struggle. Um, so definitely those two for me. Um, S wise, I want to go. We didn't place Wolverine yet, did we? I can't see the
Yeah.
one like
Sorry,
live.
we've got Namor, Psylocke, Bucky, and Wolverine left.
Yeah. Psylocke, Wolverine, I feel like kind of are more in that A category.
Yeah.
Just because again, like they can be game changers, but again, they're pretty. I don't know.
They're very
I
dependent
just
on.
don't.
They're matchup dependent.
They are, yeah. Winter Soldier, I want to say S tier.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he's that third S tier, especially right now. He's just, I mean, again, as long as you're a little accurate, you're gonna pop off. Whether it's with his shots, with his standard fire, whether it's with pulling your healer or the other team's healers, trying to get them and just take them out quickly. And then that ult, as you know now being uh, a soldier main, his ult is something to be reckoned with if you can time it right and use it at the right point of a fight. So
Mm-hmm.
he's definitely S for me. Psylocke and Wolverine again, great. That Psylocke ult is that's also a fight changer. It's gotten an ace out of my team several times, but I don't know. Um, like you said, she's just kind of they're both very fight dependent, very player dependent too.
Yeah. Yeah. When you've got ults in your back pocket that require the supports to really like track and understand, like, okay, I have to hold for Psylocke. I have to hold for Bucky. Like that puts you up there. I agree with all that. I think Namor is an A tier. I think his counterplay for dive is so important right now. With just the number of dive characters in the game, his power up, his team up with Luna Snow, giving him that third empowered octopus is huge. His ult is powerful but telegraphed and hilarious all at the same time. He just throws a giant fish at you.
Where does it come from? And then where does it go?
all questions that we hope will be answered in the comics at some point.
Yeah, that's got to be in the lore somewhere. Yeah. So did you said A for him?
Yeah, I think he's a solid A.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, he's got a lot going for him. Big whale, kind of a detractor. Yeah.
All right, Seth, I'm feeling pretty good about our first tier list here. I will say I did this tier list by myself, to prep so that I could think through some of the things I wanted to say, so I didn't come on here sounding like a fucking moron like I normally do. And I was much less gracious to some characters on here, so I appreciate you helping me see the bright side of some of these
Okay.
guys. So.
I'm glad I could contribute in some way. I do none of the work for this show, audience, just so you know.
All right, guys. Well, what do you guys think of our tier list? Who did we get wrong? Who did we get right? What do you think? Who do you think is S tier? Do you think Jeff is an S tier character? And if so, please unsubscribe. All right, Seth. Well, that's going to do it for us. This ended up being an hour and a half long podcast, and we're running up on time. This is the last weekend of the EMEA Invitational, so we'll kind of group all of our thoughts on that into next week's episode, because I'm very interested to see what you thought of the little bit you got to watch, and hopefully you'll get to watch some this weekend too. But
Hopefully a little more. Yeah, I'm lacking in that front for sure.
yeah, all right. Well, we're both in Diamond now. Seth, what are your goals in Marvel this week?
If you'd asked me literally yesterday, like afternoon, I would have said Grandmaster, baby, GM3. Right now, I'm gonna set it what I feel like is still high. I want to get Diamond 1 this week. I feel like Diamond is where the grind really starts to set in now that I'm there. Because when you lose big, and when you win, you kind of just win a little bit. So I'm right now at the ass end. I'm like in the negative on Diamond 3. So I've got some climbing to do. So I don't think that I realistically am going to make it unless I just play the hell out of the game, and I just do not have the time.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I'm going to try to get Diamond 1. I want to get GM by the end of the season, but yeah, Diamond
Yeah, that's
1.
my season goal. I just want to get GM. I might just stop if I can hit GM, just so I can hold on to it like a trophy. But we'll see. We'll see if we get there and when we get there.
Yeah, and then I still need to get that Lord on Moon Knight. I haven't done that yet, so because I just got addicted to playing Bucky. But
Yeah,
I'm still working on
my. I'm still working on my thing. I'm, it's slowly but surely. It's a little hard where I don't play them in comp as much. And I kind of cloak and dagger main a lot in their support main, but slowly but surely.
All right, guys. Well, let us know what your goals for ranked are in the comments below, and wherever you're listening to us, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you leave a comment or a review. And tune in next week for another episode of Rival Banter. Seth, as always, thanks for joining me. And I love you, buddy. And I hope you have a great week. And we will see you in the game.
Yeah.